Got it. Sorry. Just wanted you to see that lovely background there of my desktop. All right. There we go. And apparently, I'm live streaming myself on my phone. And I'm hearing myself. I need to get out of there. All right. There we go. Well, if you thought that I took myself too seriously, obviously I do not. And we are now live on the YouTube. And for those in podcast world, you didn't see anything weird. You're just going to have a weird, quiet intro, although I'll edit that out. Anyway, so today we are going to be talking about Tammy Peterson and the Rosary conversion story that she had. We're also going to be talking about Matt Walsh apparently getting all the flack from the gamers and the gamers getting Matt Walsh angry. And so there's a bit of a feud there on X. And then we're going to also do a reaction to Michael Knowles' response on IVF at a YAF conference that he had. And we're going to close it out with a discussion on Mary, the Mother of God, and feminism. And so thanks for sticking around. And yeah, let's cue the intro music here if I can. Nope, that's not the one. Hold on. I'll get there. We got this.
Welcome to the Solomon's Corner podcast, a place for thinkers. Join us as we explore the depths of theology, philosophy, and the Christian intellectual life.
All right. Welcome to this podcast. I'm Daniel Roberts. This is Solomon's Corner, where we talk about religion and culture and try to apply, critical thinking skills and just good old-fashioned conversation about what's going on in the world. Before we jump into that, I have a bunch of announcements for, people who have been following us for a while, which is mainly our Substack group. But we have a e-store that is about to launch with some mugs that have been made by my wife, and she's been not the mug, she's not like doing pottery and stuff, but she has made some really cool designs. I'm helping her with some of the quotes and some of the people that are going to be on these mugs. It's a coffee mug shop, and so I've got some preview designs here because you guys are always asking me, hey, how can we support you, how can we do this? And a lot of you guys don't like to be public on the internet, so that kind of eliminates like 50% of what you can do. But now you can give us money. So here is a little preview of the Maximilian Kolbe mug that my wife has been working with a designer on. And then we've also got, it wouldn't be complete without, Solzhenitsyn. But first I got to read you this quote. The most deadly poison of our times is indifference, and this happens although the praise of God should know no limits. Let us strive, therefore, to praise him to the greatest extent of our powers. St. Maximilian Kolbe. There you go. Does that now make you want to be Catholic? I think it does. All right. And then we also have the Solzhenitsyn, which is pretty cool. And this quote is killer. The simple step of a courageous individual is not to take part in the lie. One word of truth outweighs the world. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. So, if you are a coffee drinker and you want those mugs, there are more coming as well. We're going to try and get around 25. We've already got nearly 10, I think, in the works. Right now, St. Thomas is going to be one. We're going to do a C.S. Lewis mug. So even if you're not Catholic, there's going to be something for you too. We want you all back. So no judgment here. Well, lots of judgment, but you get what I'm saying. We'll drink coffee with you. And then let's see here. What else did I have on that? Oh, yes. If you're poorer than poor, and you still have an iPhone, which, begs a question, but we won't get into that. How else can you support us? The best way you can support us is by going to our Substack or to our X accounts at ThomisticDan. There you can follow and comment. If you are not on X, Substack is the next best thing. The way you can help us there is like, share, subscribe. You read an article, hit the little heart. That really helps. Leave a comment, whether that's on YouTube, Rumble, wherever you are. Tell the world that you enjoy this podcast. And then lastly, if you can, comment on articles with questions so that there can be follow-up content, or if you have ideas for the book club, we are going to bring that back. I just posted on Substack a question about whether or not we should do Hitler's Religion for our book club, or whether or not we should do Mao's America. Both of them are very relevant for today. Mao's America is more popular. And if we did Mao's America, I would also reach out to Z. Vliet for a interview. So jump on Substack, follow me there. Just type in solomonscorner.com. It'll take you right to my Substack. You can subscribe there. And all free subscribers, by the way, for the eStore, whether you're a paid subscriber or a free subscriber, will get a 20% off coupon to their first mug on the eStore. So it's just a small little dropship shop, but there's going to be some cool mugs there that are going to definitely make your friends think you're pretty cool and in the know about all things that are, spiritual and anti-communist. So I think that's everything I've got there for the intro. So we are going to jump right into our first story. And here's the thing, okay? Listen, I don't have a Jacob like Michael Knowles does. I don't have a Jamie like Joe Rogan, okay? It's just me. It's just me down here, all right? Doing magic and talking at the same time. And I don't get paid nearly as much as they do. So, there you go. Maybe that is a point for communism, but I digress. So we're going to get into Tammy Peterson's Rosary story. If you don't know what happened, Tammy Peterson is Jordan Peterson's wife. She was considered herself spiritual for the most part, from what I can tell. But by and large, we only heard about Tammy from Jordan Peterson when he was at his speaking engagements and would, kind of give an intro. Then she got sick, and we, kind of heard tidbits here and there, and it got really, really bad. She was basically diagnosed with a what's called I've got the note here, a Bellini tumor on her kidney. And if you have the Hallow app, you'll know this story in detail. Hallow's a prayer app. She did a reflection on her testimony. She's coming into the Catholic Church later this year at Easter. But her story is pretty phenomenal. And I think, if you don't know what it is, essentially, I'm going to just lay the land here because we're going to play a clip here from the YouTube video. But she essentially had her good friend, Queenie, I think her name is, come in and give her a rosary blessed by the Pope, and started teaching her, and also an image of the Blessed Mother. And she started praying the rosary with Queenie and her friend, and started, in her words, telling her life story as they were praying this out. And then a priest told her to pray a novena for the sick, which I believe was a 9-day novena, which, for those that don't know, that's a set amount of time that you're going to pray a set of prayers for a specific intention. Basically, if it's the novena for the sick, then you're praying for your health. And so she comes in, she's going through all these surgeries and stuff, and she makes some, just some wild stuff that predictions and things that, either she's completely fabricating this because she wants to compete with her husband's influence, which, would be completely not realistic, or she really did have a miracle happen. And so I want to talk about, also the role that miracles play in our denominations and doctrines and that whole thing. Because your doctrines and your miracles are gonna go hand in hand. That's a Protestant and a Catholic view. So, as we will see. But first, if you are already a Catholic, I have a promo code for you for Rugged Rosaries. If you go to Rugged Rosaries, you can get a 10% off of your purchase. They have awesome rosaries. My first rosary came from there. My wife bought it for me while I was investigating the Catholic Church. It's got a little Thomas Aquinas thing. They are made in Texas, and I even have a little script here. I am telling you guys, we are leveling up here on the podcast. These are strong, high-quality rosaries. They are handmade in the Texas studio, so, Texas is a good place to support right now. They are a trusted source for Catholics since 2012, and their mission is to bring strength, comfort, peace, and hope through the Holy Rosary. I recommend Rugged Rosaries, where faith meets fortitude. Crafted in the heart of Houston, Texas, Rugged Rosaries are not just beads on a string. They are a lifeline to strength, comfort, peace, and hope, engineered with the resilience of military paracord. Each Rugged Rosary is a spiritual weapon born from the battlefield and trusted by soldiers. These rosaries are designed to be as unbreakable as the human spirit. So, if you want a rosary, check out Rugged Rosaries. They also have like World War II replicas, I think it is, or World War I. Go check them out. They're really cool, have really beautiful rosaries. They also have, wooden and metal. It's great stuff. So anyway, check them out. Also, it helps me because then it means that people who listen to me go buy their stuff. And I don't get a kickback for this one. It's just 10% off. I just really like their product, and so would appreciate you guys supporting them. So back to the Tammy Peterson discussion. So essentially, she prays this rosary, and she is she's healed. And then you're not being genuine to her story. And so anyway, we're going to move on now to Matt Walsh and the gamer controversy. And I know a lot of you guys probably won't think that this makes any sense here to cover because of the nature of our podcast. We're going to try and change some of the branding, by the way, because, I like to think about things, but I don't know. I don't know if you can tell. I'm not exactly like a violins and, cigars kind of guy. But the bottom line is that Matt Walsh went after the DEI stuff on the gaming industry. And if you guys don't mind, I just really want to get my main camera back here. And I'm going to try to do that through a duplication trick here. And let's see. And I'll just edit this later. There we go. All right. Got it back. And we're going to delete that. Okay. So Matt Walsh basically went after the DEI. And I was very proud of this graphic, by the way. I put him in a Nintendo Switch right there. And the Mario star is clearly sad to represent the tragedy that has happened to the gaming community. Katniss Everdeen, I'm with you guys. Anyway, hopefully that's not like a bad symbol. That's not what I'm trying to do there. So, don't read into it too much. Anyway, what ended up happening is that Matt Walsh decided that he was going to cover the DEI stuff in the gaming industry, which I'm a gamer. Like, I enjoy video games. Last Epic is very, very fun for anybody who plays. I plan on playing Diablo 4 later this year. It's a fun thing. I'm a developer. I like video games. It's just a fact. The problem is that as it pertains to, Matt Walsh and what he's doing, he's right and wrong. And the gamers are right and wrong, in my opinion. What happened is that basically, and I've got a little clip here of the kind of that highlights these reactions. This is from Lauren Chen. She said, since Matt Walsh got criticism for his anti-video game stance and how he handled his segment on Sweet Baby Inc., not Sweet Baby Gang, for those who follow these kinds of things, Sweet Baby Inc., one of his producers has been having a Gamergate level meltdown. Within the past few hours, whoever these people are, I don't know who they are because I'm not like that dialed into the gaming community. I just like to play video games. But anyway, they went into they talked about basically the fact that these people were really angry that Matt Walsh acted like he's the first one to cover the DEI problems in the video game industry, which of course everybody has known for a long time. Like, play Spider-Man 2 and just watch the reviews. Or how about this, Call of Duty not allowing players to have the American flag on their profile for like the first month, and all you could pick was pride flags. Or the fact that one of the soldiers you can play as is a communist Chinese soldier in Call of Duty. who has like one of the best write-ups. I mean, Call of Duty was woke as all get out. So, the reality is that everybody knew that this was happening. And some of you might be saying, well, why are you covering this? We read books on this show and we talk about philosophy, theology, and how the culture kind of comes back to that. Well, because video games are like a huge part of culture. I know that a lot of people have tried to pretend like Matt Walsh, that video games just, aren't really a part of not just kids' lives, but also like the development of technology that he uses on a regular basis to post his show. There was a guy on Joe Rogan who was the developer for Doom, the Doom games, and Quake, and these were really popular games. Joe Rogan talked about him. He was also one of the guys who built the first VR headsets. So they had him on to talk about technology. And part of the things that people don't realize with video games is that they're kind of like a stress test on the hardware we use. And online gaming, all this kind of stuff, has a lot of parallels to just servers and networking and all the things that run social media as well, which is exactly what Matt Walsh uses to make his living. Also, both are extremely addictive. So video games are very addictive. Social media is very addictive. And game developers make content for gamers, and influencers make content for social media users. So both are doing the same thing. The problem that the gamers, may have overlooked, didn't see anybody say this, but the problem is that Matt Walsh is just being hypocritical to say you shouldn't play video games, which was really what got him mad. The first thing that got the gamers mad was that they were frustrated that he acted like he was the first one to cover the DEI story, which, to be fair to him, he's not a gamer. He doesn't follow these things. He basically did this because he needed some content to cover. I mean, that's why it's taken this long, is because he's had all this other content he could cover, and his thing is DEI, wokeness, transgender, all that kind of stuff. So this was just the next thing on his list. And I think it's a good thing. Elon Musk shared it out. I mean, he's right that nobody in his sphere was talking about it because they're not gamers. The problem is that Matt Walsh might think that he is the, that he has more influence than maybe he actually does. And so, you've got this, you shouldn't play video games kind of thing, and gamers are mad about that. But Matt Walsh is also half right that, well, now people who don't play video games are now talking about it, and they should talk about it because they need to know what their kids are consuming. And so Matt Walsh is totally right about that, and I think it's great that he started covering it because DEI is bad no matter what your interests are. But I think it's interesting, though, because the gamers are wrong because their reaction is super childish. Their reaction is very similar to marijuana smokers. When you tell people who smoke marijuana that you think it's a bad thing, just watch Joe Rogan on his podcast whenever somebody starts criticizing marijuana. He really gets intense. And so, it's the same thing here. Like the moment you criticize video games, it's like people are like, oh yeah, well, Netflix is just as bad. In fact, it's always better. And they get really defensive. And that doesn't help the gamer's case. So, you shouldn't get that defensive. Because you're just kind of proving Matt's point that gamers have, emotional, social problems because they play video games and all this stuff. So the last thing I want to say on this is that Matt has more of a mainstream audience. And in that sense, he's right that DEI in video games is now rising to the top. But Elon Musk definitely knew that this was a problem. That's why he shared it out. And he's like the most famous gamer, probably. He was testing Diablo 4 streams on his Twitter account or X account while they were trying to get live streaming back up. And so the problem is, though, that Matt Walsh and others are not considering is just how large, I don't think they realize, the gamer influencer crowd actually is. I just did a quick Google search before I did this show. And if you just search, gamer streamers 2024, there's a list that comes up on one of these websites that says, are you looking for a new gamer to follow on YouTube? And the first guy I found had 27 million subscribers just on his YouTube account. Matt has like 3.5 or 3.8. The gamer streaming community is way bigger than the entire, like just one of them is bigger than all of the Daily Wire host subscription levels combined. And so when we're talking about influence, we have to be very clear about what we mean by that. It's, yes, they have a lot more reach, and a lot more subscribers, and Daily Wire has less. But the quality of their subscribers, meaning the influence that they have in the narrative and the conversation, and the people that can actually do things to combat DEI. Well, Matt Walsh clearly has way more people in his listening audience than the gamers do. Like, the gamers are not going to suddenly find Ted Cruz watching them stream, and Ted Cruz is going to be like, I was listening to Mongoose 27, and he was playing Diablo 4, and I really think we should call him in to figure out the next video game bill. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. But Matt Walsh, those senators and Congress people, they do listen to Daily Wire. They go and interview on their shows. And so this is the difference between the audiences. And so the real thing is that, ultimately the gamer group is somebody that I think Daily Wire needs to figure out how to, ally with, because at the end of the day, they do need the gamer community. It's massive. It's massive. It has way more reach than anybody else. In fact, there are polls out there talking about what they vote, because people are concerned, are aware that so many people play video games, and it does have an impact on their views about things, which is why what Matt's talking about is good. It's just that most of his audience doesn't play video games. And this whole snafu or this kerfuffle or whatever has shown that gamers are reactionary, and Matt Walsh is being hypocritical about the fact that all of the things he says about video games that are bad for society are all the things that are bad about social media, and yet he makes a living off of it. So the middle road here is probably the same thing that we would say about social media or technology in general. These are all novel technologies. We are in an unknown time. Matt Walsh, we can't go back to the days of New Balance sneakers and mowing the lawn and, no smartphones. That's just not going to happen unless there's some crazy disaster or something. But moving forward, the question is, okay, well, how are we going to benefit from these technologies? What's the moral aspect of these technologies? And so if you subscribe to my Substack, I'm planning on having an article that kind of outlines, the ways that parents can help combat addiction, and also some of the utility that video games offer in a digital world, because people forget that we grew up before the internet, so we got to see it when it was the sketchiest it could be. When you weren't supposed to put a credit card into websites, and then Amazon spun up and changed the game. So be on the lookout for that. Anyway, so I think Matt Walsh, glad he covered the DEI stuff. More eyeballs on it is great. But at the same time, his criticisms of video games are just as valid for criticisms of social media. And so, both of them are problems, and both of them probably have similar solutions, which is regulation or some sort of moderation from the person. All right, moving on to Michael Knowles and IVF. And I am doing pretty good on time, I've got to say. I'm going to see how I can do this. This is a video that I saw going across X. He was, I just think Michael Knowles is top notch on IVF. I really do. And, to the Catholic Church's credit, everybody knows you can't do IVF as a Catholic. Like, even Protestants know you can't do that as a Catholic. But when I was in seminary and I was studying this subject in ethics, I became very surprised at how many people in my network were not just, IVF is neutral on IVF, but pro IVF, that they thought that the sorrow of infertility was so great on a family that that the ends justified the means. And I think that Michael Knowles gives a very compassionate, very thoughtful response here, and I just want everybody to hear it, and I'll react because I can't remember what he says in it exactly. So, I'll pause and comment if needed.
Hi, Michael. So after the recent IVF ruling that came out of the Alabama Supreme Court, a lot of prominent Republicans such as Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, and Kay Ivey are all coming out and saying that they will still support IVF facilities, despite a lot of pushback from some pro-life groups. So I'm wondering, as a fellow conservative, what do you think is the true pro-life or conservative stance on IVF?
There is no question that the pro-life stance is to oppose the surrogacy industry and IVF. It's a hard teaching. I cast no aspersions. Obviously, I'm a great admirer of President Trump and Kay Ivey and many of the people you mentioned. I think a lot of people just have not spent a lot of time thinking about this issue. They've got other things to do. It's a very novel technology. It is a relatively new bioethical question.
First of all, his tone is probably the best on this issue, on either side. I mean, he's just so compassionate on the subject. I mean, he doesn't even know if this girl was conceived in IVF. I mean, obviously, top-notch, masterclass here on how we should dialogue on these things.
It sounds nice. In theory, a couple that struggles to have a child, sometimes they get to have a child. Sometimes they just waste $100,000 and go through a whole rigmarole and don't get a child out of it. But sometimes you only hear the positive stories. And so what the surrogacy industry doesn't tell you is that the industry, by definition, commoditizes human life. It treats people like products to be purchased on an open market. And the surrogacy industry and IVF, practically speaking, in most cases, creates all sorts of people, and then they only use one or two of the embryos, and they either destroy the embryos, that is, they kill the people, or they lock them in a freezer forever and wait to kill them at some later date. Furthermore, by disconnecting...
The other thing that he doesn't get into here, but he's about to with the marital side, but the female in the process gets loaded up with hormones, and I knew somebody who was going through this at one point, and they weren't close friends or anything like that. But the wife in the situation was having some very, very high level mood swings. And it was very hard on both of them.
The procreation of children from the institution of marriage, it creates all sorts of moral hazards to the point that you now have single people, same-sex couples, unions that are just intrinsically sterile and disordered, in the sense that it's not a family, it's not a marriage.
And I just want to show one thing here, real fast, and I think it is it's worth just looking at what happens when I was building this out. I'm going to give you guys a little preview of my notes here. But when I was building this out, I searched IVF and was trying to find all these different let me bring this back here. Graphics for the section, and when I did that, I searched for these graphics over here on the side, and you can see and just if you got kids in the room, this is probably a good time to leave. None of this. What he's talking about is he's talking about the fact that this disconnects the procreative act, obviously, but even in the natural formation of families. Nothing about any of these pictures, nothing at all communicates family. And if you go back and you type in family, this is what you get. And it's mom, dad, kids. And this is far more natural. And what he's about to get into is the idea that there's a order to things. That the means do not justify the ends. And so I really think that he does a great job as he closes out this next section. Let me see if I can get back to this. Where'd you go, Michael? Oh, there we go. I got to go back to the resume last video. There we go. Man, let's get back.
Hi, Michael. So after the recent
Go out and purchase children, and they will create children with the express intent of depriving them of their child. And it's a really dreadful thing. Even those people, I don't think that they have really thought it through very much. I have 2.5 little kids, 2 and then 1 on the way. And I think they like me, but when they're really little, they don't go crying, dad, 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 dad. They need their mothers. If you have a mother and you think your mother mattered at all, if you have a father, you think your father mattered at all, it's very difficult to support an institution that would purchase the eggs from some woman, to rent the womb of another woman, to then rip that baby away from the only mother he's ever known, to intentionally deprive that child of his mother. It's just ghastly. It's morally abhorrent and indefensible. And I understand that some people have gotten kids through IVF, and I have friends who have done it. I totally understand it. And that's a good end. And, kids are great no matter how you get them, but good ends don't justify means that are so obviously morally compromised. So my advice to the politicians, not that they've requested it.
And that is the most important aspect of any ethical conversation that we are having today. The ends do not justify the means. And essentially what we are looking at right now, whether it's gay marriage or whether it's transgenderism or whether it's IVF, they all ultimately are rooted in the same thing. There's God's way, which is male, female. God made you a boy, God made you a girl, or the procreative act. Love so real that it creates a child, as Michael Knowles has said multiple times. I don't know if that's his thing or not, but I use it all the time. And that is ultimately the issue, is that we have gotten away from natural law. And this is pretty concerning from the standpoint that we are a Christian nation. And, we have killed by, the millions children, not even including the ones in IVF. So when Christian nations say they're Christian and then do these heinous things, permit these laws, permit satanic statues, all this kind of stuff in their Capitol buildings or whatever, when they permit these transhumanist things, they are presumptuous to think that the atheists and the transhumanists who are doing them are going to be walled in some way, like that they're never going to go as far as they want to go. But the problem is that the transhumanists actually do want this technology to happen, because what need is there for a God who heals the blind, makes the lame walk, makes the deaf hear? We've all seen those videos. We've all seen them on these various shows or Twitter profiles where a kid hasn't been hearing and it's a beautiful thing. Like, the technology is amazing, and he hears his mom for the first time, he starts crying. Or the person who gets a neural chip put in and suddenly can walk. These are all amazing things. But we would be really naive to think that the transhumanist movement is not in some part motivated to do these things to remove God, not for the benefit of men. In other words, this is the avenue that so many communist groups wanted, was to have the power of God so that man was no longer aware of his need for God. If the state can fill it, if it can make you walk, if the technology can do it, then why do you need religion? What need do you have to call out to God for a miracle when Google can make you see? And so I know God's in control. I know all those aspects are really in play in all this. But I also know that people tend to be naive about ignoring the natural law. And Michael Knowles is right to point this out.
If they see now that IVF is just, and the surrogacy industry broadly, is too politically difficult a topic to take on, and in political prudence they want to go about it in some, I don't know, better way or something, fine. But perhaps let's not become the party of IVF, because the reason that the Democrats and the liberals want us to go gung-ho in favor of the surrogacy industry is, one, it enshrines their false definition of marriage and family, and two, it totally undermines our argument on abortion, on life. If we really believe that life begins at conception, if we really believe the things we've been saying for 50 years now, then the surrogacy industry is totally unsupportable.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Michael.
So, finally, on that note, just to wrap it up, this is why the gamers are silly to get mad at the Daily Wire guys. Yes, the Daily Wire guys have a kind of a cool kids vibe. Yes, they can be condescending to their audience. They also make a pretty damn good product. And that product is their influence. And Michael Knowles demonstrates that he's not just able to talk about in 5 minutes. I mean, in 5 minutes, he answers this in front of people. You know, I'm going over right now at 57 minutes. He's talking to these people, and he's able to weave in his Catholic theology without ever saying the word Catholic. But he's also able to give prudence to the political landscape and say, like, you guys really shouldn't touch this because it's a trap. And it is. It's 100% a trap. It will be very difficult for conservatives to be able to navigate the political landscape if they get married to, you know, pun intended, the surrogacy and IVF industry and the gay marriage industry. It's going to be very difficult. And, you know, if you want to see how difficult that could be, you should pick up the book Contraception, Deception. Shout out to Father Calvin Robinson. I got it from him on the Pints with Aquinas podcast. I don't know Father Calvin Robinson personally. Love to have you on the show, Father Calvin, if you get this far in the episode, but I know you're a busy guy. But it outlines all these things. I mean, there's one case in there where there was a girl conceived by IVF through a surrogacy, another man for the donor, and the eggs came from another woman, and then there was a married couple who wanted the kid. So there were 5 parties involved, and then none of them wanted to adopt the kid. She was like 8. So, you know, if the Michael is completely right here, if the Republicans do not want to end up in a serious situation, if you as a Christian do not want to be called a hypocrite, because that is what you are if you are pro-life and pro-IVF, it's just a fact. They die. The kids die in the process, or they're in a ice-cold purgatory on Earth for the rest of their life. It's just not a good option. So anyway, props to Michael Knowles for that. I think he did a great job, and we're going to just move on to Mary and feminism. I need to work on some stingers, you know, like that's what I'm realizing I'm missing. I need to have some sort of like, you know, jingle that comes in and is like, do, and then here's the next thing, you know, like Andrew Clavin, he's got it down good. But again, you know, I don't have all these fancy people in the background running my show. This one's basically, I just wanted to talk about part of my conversion story to Catholicism, which was Mary is a big obstacle for some people. Also, I did pick this feminist symbol because it looked very anti-Christian, and I think feminism is anti-Christian. Not the idea that women should have rights and all those kinds of things, but the ideas surrounding feminism as, you know, the radical feminist or the third wave feminist and stuff. And I'm not a feminist scholar or whatever, but we all know the idea of like, you know, I can be a Navy SEAL if I want to be, you know, kind of stuff. But what happened was during our conversion story, very early on, I had started reading the Catechism, and we had a female deacon at our Anglican church who was taking on more and more responsibilities at the church, and like helping with setting up the altar and stuff during the service. It's not a mass; it's a service. Father Kirby definitely drilled that home to me when we were in South Carolina. But the nature of this situation was that we had taught our kids, you know, priests are that's a job for men, not a job for women. Some people believe that it is okay. It's not, all this kind of stuff. And what ended up happening was that we were driving home one day, and one of my daughters asked, Dad, if the priest is only for men, then what job in the church do women have? And I had never really thought about this question, but my daughter prompted me to start talking to her about, I've got a daughter who wants to serve God. She wants to know what her role is in the church, what she can look forward to as she grows older. And I realized, as I was talking, that the section I had just recently read was on the Marian dogmas. And I just started to explain to her all of the beautiful descriptions of Mary in the Catechism that make her what she was, the Mother of God. One of the things I told my daughter, I said, listen, the priest has an important job, but women have an important job too. So important, in fact, that was how God chose to enter the world. He didn't enter through a priest. He didn't come out of a cave. He chose a woman. And Mary is an example of what God can do with women who decide to serve the church. And I started just walking through some of these descriptions of Mary, that she was perfect and that she was willing to love her neighbors. She was willing to serve. She was obedient to God. She fulfilled, she did it unquestioningly. And through her, in God's mysterious plan, he chose a woman to start the whole process. But it wasn't a girl boss. And the thing is about the importance of Mary that I realized in that moment was that we are, as Michael Knowles would say, incarnate creatures. We need to see things. We need to see what we are supposed to aim at. And Walter Chiswick, in his book, He Leadeth Me, talks about the solitary confinement and how sensory deprivation really has an impact on the mind, meaning like where you don't get to see the world. You don't get to see God's creation. You don't get to be intimately connected to the world in a way in which you can determine what you're made for and who you should aim to be. And in solitary confinement, it becomes very much a question of, will you cooperate with God in faith, or will you try to just will yourself there? And if those who have read the book know that Walter Chiswick breaks under this solitary confinement. But as I was talking to my daughter about these various aspects, it really became clear that Mary was a second Eve. And I knew about typologies and stuff from my seminary education, and I don't mean to make it sound like, to become Catholic you have to be a seminary nerd, but it definitely makes it easier, I think, for me. But then you've got Tammy Peterson's story, and she's definitely not an academic, but clearly God is going to reach people however he wants to reach them and get them into his church. But when you tell women that there is no perfect woman for them to emulate, we shouldn't be surprised that they try to fabricate their own image of what a woman should be, the ideal woman. And when they do, they get some sort of corrupted version where the virtues like the strength and determination and all the things that feminism wants elevated suddenly get elevated so high that the idea of women or the idea of feminism starts to be corrupted. It's almost like that myth, Icarus, or I can't remember what the guy is, but he has wax wings and he wants to fly really high, and he gets so high that because he's prideful, that the sun melts his wings of wax and he falls to the ground. That's what feminism is. It's trying to hit an ideal that they're not made to hit, which is essentially masculinity. But when Christians decide that they're going to downplay Mary, when they decide that they're going to act like she's just another woman, they don't even have to adopt all of these Catholic dogmas, like the assumption to heaven or whatever Catholics do. But, if you wanted the benefits of the ideal woman, even Andrew Clavin says that Mary is the ideal feminine. And so, and everybody knows that Andrew Clavin has some loose views on, homosexuality and marriage and those kinds of things. So he's no orthodox theologian. But if even he can recognize that the Mary is the ideal feminine that we are supposed to aim at, that women are supposed to aim at, and Christ is what we're all supposed to aim at as men and as women, because we all have a cross to bear. But we do it uniquely as men and women. And men are supposed to, just as women are supposed to imitate Christ, they're also more to imitate Mary. Men are supposed to imitate Christ, and they're also supposed to imitate Mary, because in the Catholic Church, she's the perfect disciple. Because she's not both divine and human in the way that Christ was. She is the perfect ideal disciple. She is the example of what we are to become if we carry our cross in perfect faith. And so it's a paradox. There's no doubt about it. In the same way that, answer a fool lest he be foolish. Don't answer a fool lest you be a fool. It's a paradox. Doesn't mean that there's not some kernel of truth there for your personal life. But like all things in Christianity, what appears to be a riddle or a puzzle is actually the most profound way that we could describe it. And it becomes very, very clear when we decide to follow that in faith. And so in Mary, I think there is an antidote to feminism. And I'm still learning as much as I can about the way in which the communion of saints and the Marian dogmas and the way that Mary works in our Christian faith as Catholics. But I do believe that just as God demonstrates both feminine and masculine characteristics and did not leave us without the perfect forms of each, I think that Mary is the perfect woman and her son is the perfect man. And where Adam and Eve failed, Christ completes, and Mary receives that grace. And so we can look at both of them as the fullness of Christianity. And if you find the fullness of Christianity, feminism won't be as attractive as it once was. That is all I have for today. I appreciate you guys listening wherever you are. And we will be back here at 9 o'clock on Saturdays. So thank you for listening. And as always, keep thinking. And I'm going to figure out how to hit this thing way fast.